Not knowing something used to terrify you. Changdu thought not knowing was the most honest place a person could stand. About 2,300 years ago, in ancient China, when competing schools of philosophy each claimed to have mapped the universe and confident certainty was the primary credential of any serious thinker, a writer from the state of Song was doing something that puzzled almost everyone around him. He kept undermining his own arguments. He told stories that ended without conclusions. He asked questions, and then questioned the questions. And whenever someone pressed him for a definitive answer about how things really were, he had a habit of pointing at the sky and changing the subject. His name was Changdu, and the thing he was circling, the idea that runs underneath everything he wrote, was so unsettling to the intellectual culture of his time that most people assumed he was joking. He wasn't. The China of his era was a world of fierce philosophical competition. Every school had a system. The Confucians had mapped out the proper structure of society. The legalists had precise theories of governance. The Mohists debated ethics in exacting detail. Each camp believed it had correctly understood the nature of things, and that once you held the correct understanding, you could act from it with full confidence. The appeal of this is obvious, and it hasn't faded at all. We still want the system, the framework, the comprehensive answer that will clarify the uncertainty and give us solid ground to stand on. The right diet, the correct political view, the proven philosophy for living. If we can just find the thing that's definitely true, the restlessness will stop and we'll know what to do. Changdu watched people chasing this their entire lives and noticed what it was actually producing. Not peace, but a more elaborate form of anxiety. Because the moment you've committed completely to a system, every piece of reality that doesn't fit becomes a threat. You spend your energy defending the framework instead of actually encountering the world. So what was he pointing at when he refused to give the certain answer everyone wanted? He was a master of the parable. His writing is full of strange little stories that seem to go sideways before you realize they went somewhere precise. One of his most famous involves a dream where he becomes a butterfly, completely, with no awareness of being a man. Then he wakes up, and he asks, "Am I a man who dreamed he was a butterfly, or am I now a butterfly dreaming I am a man?" Most readers laugh and move on. Changdu meant it as a genuine question, not to produce paralysis. To produce something rarer, intellectual humility about the limits of what any single perspective can actually confirm. The lesson underneath it isn't reality doesn't exist. It's far more practical. The story he was actually telling was about how firmly we believe our current vantage point is the whole picture. When you're in the dream is completely real. There is no felt sense of limitation or unreality. And yet, the dream is a partial view, your current certainty about how things are, the career path that obviously makes sense, the relationship that clearly means this, the situation that definitely requires that response. It's built on the same kind of thing. A perspective, a moment's reading, one vantage point out of an unimaginable number. He wrote about a frog at the bottom of a well, who had a very complete and confident understanding of the sky. The sky was a circle, roughly the size of the well's opening, blue or grey, depending on the day. A sea turtle told the frog about the ocean. The frog could not process it. The ocean didn't fit the framework built from the bottom of the well. Nobody thinks they're the frog. Everyone is sometimes the frog. And this is where Changdu stops being merely philosophical and starts being genuinely useful. Most of the anxiety you carry right now is not about things that are actually happening. It's about uncertainty. About not knowing how something will turn out. Not being able to confirm that the decision was right. Not having a guarantee about the future. The mind treats uncertainty like a problem to be solved, and it will work on that problem constantly, churning through scenarios and possibilities, trying to get to the solid ground of knowing. Chang Tzu's radical suggestion was that the solid ground doesn't exist and never did. The certainty you think you're looking for is a thing your mind invented because it could not tolerate the alternative. The alternative is not despair. He was clear about that. The alternative is something he called following the natural course of things, moving with what is actually present rather than against what your mind insists should be present. Like a cook who has worked with meat so long that the knife finds the spaces between bones without effort. Not because the cook has conquered the animal, but because the cook has learned to move with its actual structure rather than imposing a predetermined map onto it. That's the fresh image. Certainty as a map drawn before the territory was visited, forced onto terrain it was never actually based on. And Chang Tzu as the person saying, put down the map and look at where you actually are. Now here's what this asks of you specifically. There is something in your life right now that you cannot resolve, and the inability to resolve it is causing you significant ongoing distress. Maybe it's a relationship whose future is genuinely unclear. A career decision with no obviously right answer. A loss that doesn't make sense and refuses to fit into any framework that would explain it. Something that has been sitting in the background of your attention for weeks or months, resisting all attempts to make it certain. Your mind's strategy for dealing with it is probably some version of more analysis, more consideration of possibilities, more attempts to predict or control or definitively understand. And that strategy is costing you sleep and presence and energy. And it is not working, because the thing is genuinely uncertain and no amount of thinking will make it otherwise. Chang Tzu's alternative is not to stop caring. It's to stop requiring certainty as the price of engagement. To ask, what does this situation actually ask of me, right now, in this moment? Not in the resolved future version, where everything is clear. What is actually present here, that I'm refusing to see, because I am too busy looking for what I expected to find? His butterfly wasn't troubled by not knowing which was the dream. It was too busy being a butterfly to worry about classification. That quality of full presence, without demanding that the moment first provide its credentials, that is what he was teaching. Not passive resignation. Something more like skilled alertness. The ability to move through genuine uncertainty without being stopped by it. He trusted, above everything else, the capacity of a person who has stopped demanding certainty to actually perceive clearly. Fog is only blinding when you insist on needing to see to the horizon. In the fog itself, what's immediately around you becomes remarkably clear. Not knowing isn't the problem he was trying to solve. He was trying to show you it was never the problem to begin with. The frog at the bottom of the well was very comfortable, and completely wrong. The sea turtle had less certainty and a far better relationship with the actual size of things. Chang Tzu left the system incomplete on purpose. That was the whole point. Subscribe if this one settled something. The next video goes into his ideas on what it actually means to live without forcing.